What's up? I'm going to answer a question about unions. Because somebody asked me, do I think the unions are good or bad? I'm paraphrasing, but that's essentially what I was asked. And I don't really like that question because it implies that there's only really two answers to that question. Is the union good or is the union bad? Or are unions or whatever good or bad? And I'm somewhere in the middle on that. You know, just for some perspective, look at the last video I made about the UAW, and look at the responses to that. People, you know, don't you dare question the UAW. They have the best interests of the workers in mind. If you question the UAW, you hate workers. You know, and that's just not true. But don't try to convince a UAW apologist of that because they're fucking stupid. I've about had it up to fucking here with these UAW cocksuckers. And, you know, I don't really give a fuck, okay, what you got to say. And I have family members who are members of the UAW, and I'll tell them the same fucking thing. And, in fact, I have. And I have an aunt who's a member of the teachers union, and I'll tell her the same shit. I'm not afraid to speak my mind on this issue because everyone's been made afraid to question the wisdom of the unions. No one questioned the unions. All right, let's be perfectly honest with each other here. All right, the things that the union was originally that unions were originally created for. Most of these problems are long past. The ship has sailed on those. They're gone, okay? Unions were created in a time where you were working for basically slave labor. You had ungodly hours, no benefits, no health care, you know, no laws concerning safety in the workplace, and no way to appeal to management because, you know, nobody in government would appeal to management for you, so on and so forth. And I have great respect for those pioneers, those early unions that did that fought for these things, that secured fair working environments for all of us, by extension. But the current incarnations of these unions are not the same thing, most of them. Take the UAW, for example. The current incarnation of the UAW is not the same thing as what it originally was. What we have is a bunch of people, you know, that feel entitled to something. We have a group of elite workers that corner the market on their particular industry, won't allow anyone into it really unless they're part of the union, and will continue to demand and 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 demand over and over and over again, increases in wages and increases in benefits and increases in pensions and so on and so forth, when they know that the industry is doing badly, when they know that they're not making money, when they know that the industry cannot afford it in the long run. They know these things. This is no secret to them. They know it, and they still kept asking for it. Why? Because the UAW doesn't give a fuck about the industry. The UAW doesn't give a fuck about workers. The UAW only cares about what's in their pocket, okay? Is the UAW completely responsible for what happened to the Big Three? No. Does the UAW deserve part of the responsibility? Yes. Why do I hark so much on the UAW? Because the UAW manages to skirt all responsibility completely. They're totally left out. No one dares to even bring up that maybe the UAW has something to do with this. All right. The fact is that the UAW is partially responsible for the ruination of the car industry and for the industrial wasteland that it has created out of states like my state of Michigan. Okay, it is partly responsible for that. The leadership of the UAW, who loses? All right, when a plant closes down in Troy, who loses? Does the leadership of the UAW lose? No, the workers, the low workers, they lose. Okay, when a plant closes down in Flint or Detroit or Livonia or Dearborn, who loses? Is it the head of the UAW? Is it the people at the top? No, it's the workers. They're the ones who lose. All right. The UAW as an organization doesn't give a fuck about you or me or anything other than what they can do to stuff their pockets more. Okay? They're just as greedy as they claim management is, and that's fucked up. Am I against unions? No. I'm for smaller unions. I think that there should be a single union for each car company. I think that is totally fucking reasonable. Because by creating one big union, they're able to enforce their will on the industry. And, you know, hedge out any other people that might want to get involved. You know, a union shouldn't be able to stop everything in its tracks, okay? A union should be able to pressure management to make changes, but the union shouldn't be able to stop the fucking industry, okay? The teachers, you know, the Detroit Teachers Union striking for better pay, okay? Do I think the teachers deserve more money? Yes, okay? It's a difficult job that you're doing. I think you should have considered the consequences before you went into that career, but fair enough. It's a difficult job to teach these fucktards. Any teacher has a hard job, and I think you deserve more money. But do I think you deserve more money at the expense of the students? No. No, I don't. Sorry. I guess you shouldn't have joined that line of work. Okay? I don't think you deserve more money at the expense of the students. You know, how the fuck are you gonna strike? We're not gonna come to work and we're gonna fuck up everybody's life. You know, we're gonna fuck up the parents and the kids and everything because we want more money. They don't have any money. What is the city of Detroit is supposed to pull the money out of thin air? Just like, oh, here's the money. Here you go. You know, they have to close down schools every year and shit, and the teachers are still demanding more money. I want more money. You know, what the fuck do you want? Okay. I'm sorry, but you can't get money that doesn't exist, okay? There has to be a level of compromise here, all right? You know, there's lots of other issues that go into whether or not the schools are having problems with money. That's why I'm against the Department of Education. I think the Department of Education is a huge reason why school systems like Detroit are out of money. You know, you score low, you get less money. Then because you got less money, you score lower, so you get less money. That doesn't make any fucking sense, and I absolutely agree. But the teachers' unions are fucking helping, okay? You have to be willing to accept some responsibility, which is why I'm so angry at these unions, because they manage to totally act like, oh, what, I didn't do anything, I don't know anything about it, I'm just a victim here, okay? Fuck off, all right? When the UAW helped fuck up the big three, they were doing more than just endangering their jobs. They were endangering the livelihood of the entire state and of all the communities that rely on the auto industry as the core of their economy. They endangered everyone's life, everyone's livelihood by extension. Okay, and they don't care, and that pisses me off. But I am in favor of unions to some extent. But I think unions, when they get too big, should be treated just like monopolies. Okay? Just because you're made up of workers doesn't mean that you get to, you know, have special privileges. Okay? When a company gets too big and starts taking over the industry, they should be broken up. When a union gets too big and starts taking over the industry, they should be broken up. You know, Toyota. Who's fucked? Okay? With the big three and Toyota, which one is fucked? Is it Toyota or the big three? It's the big three. Which one had the UAW? Which one had the fucking UAW? Alright? And nobody seems to want to admit the connection. But anyway, I'm gonna catch a bunch of shit for this. I know. But I don't really care. You know. So that's what I have to say about that. Small unions, no union monopolies. How about that? I'll talk to you folks later.